I wanted to discuss the Shita of the Rambam about knowing God. I mentioned before the Kant-free school of thought, which I'd like to go into in much further detail another time. But at this point I want to mention that that's not the Shita of the Rambam or of the different, well, that school of thought from basically from Saadia Gaon well, you know, in the Chuvot Levavot, I guess it's called by Yossi Faur, Old Sfarad, that school of thought. Well, the Rambam doesn't, he wouldn't be holding from a type of knowledge that I mentioned before in the Kant-Fries videos, this type of knowledge that comes not by sensory perception, not by reason. And so to give some idea of what I mean by this, let me just say that the Rambam, a lot of the Kant-Free school of thought came about because well, basically like knowing things based on reason wasn't considered so great by the empirical school of thought. They thought that things could be only known by their perception or based on perception, and then Kant basically, you know, based on, well, I think it was basically Kant knocked that school out of the water. So it came along with they need to come up with Yaakov Fries came up with this idea that there's another type of perception, which in the former Soviet Union, actually people were much more aware of this, the Kant-Free school of thought, because it opened up the window to spirituality, a type of knowledge that's not by sensory perception and not by reason. So they were definitely aware of that. But in the West, it was almost completely forgotten about. It seems to me to be like the only really decent school of thought that came out of Kant. However, I want to mention that it's not the Rambam. The Rambam is along the rationalist school of thought that you do know things by reason, and in fact, that's pretty much the only no, it's not pretty much. It is the only way you know things is by reason. Period. That is it. That school of thought actually continued later on with Leibniz, Gödel, Spinoza, that school of thought. So I want to mention about the Rambam that it's very important to understand with the Rambam that he does believe in reason, and also I do believe that reason can tell a person quite a lot. Much more than what the empirical than later schools of thought and philosophers thought. So what I'm trying to get through this is that not only is reason important to the Rambam, but in this whole school of thought, you can Chuvot Levavot, Saadia Gaon, the Rambam that believe that reason is the only way of knowledge. And they might have, of course, because Ram was going with Spinoza, he might have definitely had empirical knowledge also, induction from empirical knowledge. So the Rambam would have definitely hold that because he's going with Aristotle. But basically, the one real absolute way of knowing something is by reason. Well, that's really important in this school of thought, because that's the way a person gets attached to God, according to the Rambam. This is like something a little bit. You know, it's something I need to explain, because some people think that the idea of attachment with God, it says in the Torah to be attached to God. You should serve God and be attached to God, l'davka bo, right? That's one of the highest mitzvahs. And wow, in the one of the Pirushim, like the Pirush it's an anonymous Pirush on the Rambam in the first four prakim, he has this whole thing about, well, one pasuk says do the mitzvahs to get to fear of God, and the other says fear of God, so you do the mitzvahs. So he says no problem. Well, there's, you know, you do the mitzvahs, you fear God and the lower fear to get to the mitzvahs, and then you do the mitzvahs to get to the higher fear. And so this higher fear, and that's supposed to sort of open up the way to Dveikus. So some people understand Dveikut, attachment with God, as this, whoa, like, basically emotional high state. That's not, that's not, it's considered not so by the Chobot Levavot, the Rambam, that old Sfarad school of thought. They felt that Dveikut in God is by reason, by attaching one, by Seichel Nikne, by knowing, by some type of knowledge in which a person knows as much as a human being can know about God's creation. That means, in the language of the Rambam, that means physics and metaphysics. That's how he explains it. So when a person knows these whole subjects, then his intelligence gets attached to the intelligence of God. That's called Dveikut to the Rambam. It's a completely radical and almost unheard of opinion today. It's hard to imagine such a type of Dveikut, but this is the type of Dveikut, attachment with God, that the Rambam believed in. He believed that the mitzvot were to get, for a person to come to physics, and then physics to come to metaphysics, and at that point his intelligence would become attached to the intelligence of God. That's the Chobot Levavot also. And it's that whole school of thought. Okay, that's enough for a short video today. Thank you.